Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second panel of the Cyber Skills Pathway, the one where we talk to people around who do you work for. I've got four great speakers today who are going to talk to us about their companies, how they got started in cybersecurity, and what you can look forward to in your cyber career. Now, each company is quite different in what they do in the cybersecurity industry and the different kinds of careers that are available. Let's introduce our panel. First up, we've got Damon Scott, who's the COO of Aegis 9. We also have Matt Wilcox, who's the CEO and founder of Fifth Domain. And then we've got Michaela Delbridge, who is Strategic Partnerships and Business Strategy at Pen 10. And lastly, but definitely not least, we have Jen Furbank, who is in charge of cybersecurity strategy and influence at Telstra. Thanks for being here, everybody. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to run through and have everybody give us a little bit of an overview of what your company does, seeing that everybody does something a little bit different in cybersecurity. I might start with Damon. Can you tell me what Aegis 9 does?
Thanks, Brianna. Yes. So Aegis 9 is what you describe as an above-the-line consulting firm. So for Aegis 9, we specialize in providing advice to organizations on how to best improve their security posture. So oftentimes for government organizations, we perform IRAP services, and we also do a fair amount of consulting in the governance, risk and compliance space. Alongside that, we also have our cyber capabilities. So they're things such as offensive cyber techniques, as well as digital forensics and incident management. Aegis 9 also operates a cybersecurity operations center based out of a sovereign data center here in Canberra. So we help organizations also in real time protect their environments.
Fantastic. Thank you. Matt, what does Fifth Domain do?
Thanks, Brianna. So Fifth Domain is a software as a service company that builds platforms that helps facilitate the transfer of expert cyber knowledge and measure that transfer for SOC managers, educators, national security, government agencies. And so we do that so the SOC operators and these enterprises can help build the cyber workforce that they need to defeat cyber threats, that are coming at them from across the world.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. We'll loop back around to how you got started in that area, but that sounds really great. Michaela, we'll move on to you next. What is it that Pen 10 does?
Hi, Brianna. Hi, everyone. So Pen 10 is an Australian company, and we love to take problems that no one else is looking at addressing and taking an idea about how we might solve that problem. And we create, design, develop, and build that product that might address that challenge or that problem, especially if it's related to Australian national security. And we take that to our commercial and our government partnerships, and we try and make that solution a reality so that we can solve the problem together.
Fantastic. And then we'll move on to Jen. Now, obviously, Telstra is a very big company, but there's a good sized cyber portion to what they do. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brianna. So I do work for Telstra, and we are an Australian telecommunications company, and we probably touch the lives of almost every Australian in some way or another. And we have quite a large cybersecurity team, and it's our job to protect the networks, our data, our customers, and our employees. So it's a really fascinating role. I like to think about it as, if you think of a neighbourhood, Telstra is essentially running the roads, the pathways. So we're helping things move back and forth. So our security role is really to protect that and make sure the right things are going down there, and we can remove the known bad from those pathways and those roads. And our cybersecurity team really runs the full gamut of cybersecurity capabilities. So we've got everything from our SOC capabilities, monitoring, detecting, responding, through to national security, helping shape policy, influencing legislation where we can, through to strategy and influence, which is my area, looking at where we're heading to 2025, but also how are we shaping people's behaviours and getting them to work in a way that protects Telstra and themselves, and also getting them to care about cybersecurity, not just be aware, but care. So we really run the full gamut of cybersecurity capabilities.
Wow, that sounds great. So obviously that's the influence part of your title, is getting people to be more aware of cyber and the threats that it poses to, and that is the thing, is to everybody. It's to the everyday person all the way up to national security, as you've all mentioned. So that's super interesting. Thank you. Now I might stay with you, Jen. How did you get into cybersecurity?
I look back on it now and I think it was really meant to be, because it happened at the time by pure chance. My background is very different to cybersecurity. I'm not deeply technical. My formal training is actually in corporate communications and business management. So way back in 2015, which for a lot of cybersecurity people is a long career in cyber, I found an opportunity to come work at Telstra in that influence capability. So it was really leaning on my corporate communication skills, looking at how do we get people to care about something? How do we change behaviours? How do we manage perception and relationships? So it was really bringing all those skills to the cybersecurity challenge and really shifting the needle on how we approach and manage cybersecurity within Telstra. So that's how I ended up here. And I like to really reflect on that, because I think, particularly even looking at my team, it doesn't matter really where you are in your professional field, there are skills that are applicable to cyber in some way or another. So my team is made up of graphic designers, ex-journalists, I've got an ex-fashion manager, ex-school teacher, and they're all bringing really core skills from their different areas to tackling cybersecurity in some way or the other. It's a really fascinating space.
And it is, and I think it's a really good point to make, that being non-technical, as I think some of our panel are definitely non-technical that come across to this space, there's so much that you can do from the background that you bring forward, which is fantastic. Now, Michaela, I'm going to jump to you, as I think probably a very technical person with your background, but obviously having moved into strategy. So what was your cyber journey?
So I actually started 20 years ago in telecommunications in the Army. So for 18 years, I was an Australian Army officer in the Royal Australian Corps of Signals. And the core business of signals in the Army is to, not dissimilar to what Jen was saying about Telstra's role for Australia, is to make sure that information is flowing where it needs to flow. And the natural evolution of telecommunications from like radios and satellite communications for the Army is cyber and cybersecurity, because that's, today's medium for how we communicate. So for me, it started in the military, and then I had the opportunity to complete my master's in cybersecurity operations. And I've continued to grow and progress in the Army to a point where I was advocating for cybersecurity challenges to be resolved for decision makers who might not be technical and might not be necessarily as literate in cyberspace as me and my team were. And that was a natural progression when it came time to leave the Army, and Pen 10 came calling, and it's been a really exciting 12 months that I've been with Pen 10 ever since.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, Matt, I'm going to move to you. Now, you actually have a great history in cybersecurity. You were actually teaching at UNSW, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right, Brianna. So my career started in cyber back in 2008 when I was a graduate at DSD, that it was called at the time, now ASD. And I did that for a number of years and helped set up the CSOC, which is now the ACSC, as part of under ASD. So I did that, and I got out of that and I moved into consulting to broaden my horizons a little bit. And at that time, missed the tech. I was doing a lot of management consulting and missed the tech. And so I just approached UNSW at ADFA and asked if there were any tutoring opportunities in IT security or IT. And they said, well, we're actually starting a Masters of Cybersecurity. Would you like to write some units for us? And so that's where it all started. I took on that challenge and helped start the Masters of Cybersecurity. Wrote two courses and delivered two courses, one around offensive cybersecurity and another one around defensive cybersecurity. And so I did that for a little while and part-time, and then decided, well, this is a good thing. I really enjoy this and there's a great demand for it. Why don't I take it full-time? And that was when Fifth Domain began. And really at that time, the problem around teaching cyber operations was having simulated environments to be able to do hands-on training and practice skills and techniques and understand these threats within actually looking at them in real time. And so there was no real solution out there to deliver these at scale. A lot of regular training was done. It used to take me hours setting up the machines within the classroom to be able to copy virtual machines across to et cetera, to one machine to the other. And then when it was all centralized, it was very difficult to have scale. And so what I did is with Fifth Domains, we started building platforms that could replicate, larger environments. And so that's where Fifth Domain's gone. And now we provide large training environments, competitions platforms, labs platforms for individual training, platforms for assessments of skills with recruits and internal staff as well. And that's where we've really gone. And what we really do, what I really love is that it's really hard to know what's good, within a cyber operator. And it's hard to know by looking at someone's resume, or it's hard to know looking at, the SOC operators, whether they're doing what they're doing, because it's hard to prove a false negative. And what I mean by that is that, a really good cyber operator sitting at a terminal going, there's no threats, is within a really hacked environment looks the same as a really good cyber operator in a really secure environment going, there's no threats. So it's really hard to know, what's going on here. And so what we do is we run people through assessments and trainings and simulations. And we do that at the individual level, but also at the collective level of the SOC to go, well, these people have performed these certain activities to this level. And what we start to do is then benchmark that across different industries and et cetera like that. So people can start to see where they are at and what training they need to do that thing. So it's really been an evolution, my journey. And I think it's, similar to what Melissa was saying around, finding problems. We've really then fallen into these problems and evolved as a company, and our passion around, really helping organizations understand what is good and what they need to be able to combat cyber threats, because cyber is a competitive sport. This whole industry exists because basically there's, other people on the other end of the wire trying to subvert our systems and take advantage of us.
Great, thank you. It's a really great deep dive into what you guys do. And I think we'll dig a little bit more into that assessment piece, because I think that's really interesting for the people on the call. Damon, how did you get into cybersecurity? I know you've got a really interesting path.
It's been a long and interesting journey to get to this point. I'll tell you that much, Brianna. So my background started a very, very long time ago in a completely unrelated industry. I was actually a pastry chef, which is how I entered professional existence. And through a series of twists and turns that one takes over the course of your career, I found myself being drawn towards IT. So I spent a lot of time working for global system integrators, for software firms, and for a sovereign cloud provider. And it was my time during working for the sovereign cloud provider that really gave me the real interest in the detailed aspects of sovereign security. The cloud provider in question has an exceptionally, and had for a very long time, the most robust platform in terms of its security posture. And I found myself, whilst cloud is an amazing environment, I found myself drawn more and more into the aspects of what actually secured that environment, which prompted me to then take a more closer turn towards working for a dedicated provider.
So you're the one we need to come to when we're looking for some sweets after the show?
Yeah, come talk to me about it. We'll see what
Excellent. I'll stay with you, Damon. What is it that you love about the cyber industry? What's the passion for you?
For me, it's the fact that it's an ever-evolving landscape. It doesn't stay static. There is, every single day, there is something new. There is a different technique to master. There is something of interest. New threats are exposed. New actors are exposed. It just continually evolves. And what that does is it forces, I shouldn't say force, but it encourages people to really consider carefully how they're going to choose to engage with the industry overall. And in the environment, if you're not keeping your skills up to date, if you're not keeping your knowledge up to date, then within a matter of weeks or months, you can lose an edge that can otherwise serve to benefit the organization you work for.
Thank you. Michaela, I'll jump to you. I think with the longest cyber career from everybody, what is it that you love about cyber?
I think that the industry is really exciting. It's especially exciting for Australia, that it really is available to everyone, and anything is possible within the industry. And first and foremost, I think the most fascinating thing about cyber and cyberspace is that it's actually about normal life. It's about making the world more accessible to people. It's about communicating with people that you want to communicate when you need to communicate with them and where you want to communicate with them. And the cybersecurity component is really about making information safe. And that is sometimes in an environment that's a little bit more dangerous than talking face to face or engaging on your phone or in other ways, in more traditional ways. But like Damon said, it's always changing, it's always evolving, and we really don't know for sure what's around the corner. And that's what makes this Cyber Week so exciting, is that, you know, asking about what's next. No one really knows for sure, and nothing is more dynamic or more at pace than within cyberspace. And so that's what makes it exciting, I think.
Thank you. And Jen, I'm going to assume is very much going to be around agreeing with you about it being about the everyday people, and it crosses all of the things. With Telstra, you must see it across so many different verticals. So for you, coming obviously from a comms background, what is it about cyber that excites you?
Oh, there's so many parts. I think for me, one of the things I really love is that it is constantly evolving. And I think both Damon and Michaela have touched on that. You know, there are no 2 days the same. And, you know, even if I look back to when I first joined in 2015 versus now, you know, the landscape has significantly changed, but there are still some very, very common threads. But I love the way that we've shifted the needle to increase people's awareness about it overall. And I think that has been really interesting to observe over that time, is to see actually how much it's entered the public consciousness is actually something we need to consider and be aware of. So I love that aspect to it. And I think, you know, that's only going to continue, because unless we suddenly magically solve this thing cyber, you know, we're always going to be in this evolving field. So that's certainly one part of it. But the other part of cyber that I absolutely love are the people, because we have some of the most incredibly smart and passionate, excitable people I've ever met in any industry that I've worked in. And, you know, the level of care they have for what they do is just immeasurable. It is absolutely astounding. And to see, you know, how they bring such diverse and different skill sets to solve this challenge is absolutely fascinating. And you know, there's not one day that you don't come across someone that approaches something in a completely new way with a very different personality. And, you know, just being able to work with so many different people to tackle the same problem is just absolutely fantastic.
That's awesome. And I think we might loop back to Matt. We're talking about different kinds of personalities and skills. So this assessment tool that you were talking about, you've developed, how do you find that those sorts of attitudes as different to aptitude in the cyber workforce, how that actually affects the people that we see coming into the new generation of cyber workforce?
Yeah, thanks, Brianna. Yeah, it's very interesting. Even though we work in cyber and we're a SaaS company, you know, we work with people. It's about improving people. And so, so first of all, you know, we are very focused on the security operations personnel, you know, technical people and so forth like this, just focus in on that and helping them become the best at what they can do. So what we do is we're able to, we have a team of data scientists and behavior scientists within Fifth Domain. And what we do is we actually start to look at the way that people interact with the problem set. And so we have, like I said, we have a scientist, which use much bigger words properly than what I can. But there are things around looking at how does someone approach the problem. So we give them a series of challenges in front of them, and we see, do they triage the problem? Do they go through the problems in, you know, difficult to easy? Do they start off with easy to difficult? How much time do they spend on the problems? So we start to develop maps or patterns of behavior of what people can do and the way that we like to work. And the reason that we do that is that we're not saying what is good or bad. We're just saying what is, and being able to then let the manager and give the manager insights into the way that they like to work, and then putting them to different areas. So people that are very good at context switching are great analysts. People who, you know, are very methodical in what they do are great engineers. So it's about putting the people in the right jobs for the, you know, doing things right. So that's what we really are about. And we're very passionate about using data to be able to inform the decision makers, inform the people, the cyber operators and the managers, to then give them the best possible job to make them succeed and to make the organization succeed.
That's really interesting. Thank you. I love the idea of using the data and the way that people actually look at, top to bottom problems and whether they pick the easy ones or the hard ones first, as to how they, how that would relate to the jobs that they kind of should or could be doing. All right, so Jen touched on the fact that there's not a typical day in cyber. So to help our attendees kind of understand what happens in a cyber company every day, Damon, do you have a typical day? What does a typical day look like for you?
No, I don't have a typical day. More often than not, and I'm sure everybody on the panel will agree with this to some extent, where you start at the beginning of the day or where you think you're going to start is absolutely not where you end up. So in my role, I spent a lot of time looking at the operations of the business. So my day might start with me thinking that I'm reviewing a particular legal agreement. By lunchtime, that agreement has then been put to one side, and I'm now in negotiations with a service provider to support some of the activities that we do in the business. And by late in the afternoon, I'm in a detailed conversation with the CFO with regard to organizational finances. And that agreement that I started looking at in the morning is still not finished.
So there's a lot behind the scenes. So we often talk about cyber careers and the fact that there are so many different things that you can do in a cyber career that's not always technical and not always necessarily, for example, red or blue teaming, but obviously there's a great deal behind the scenes to run a cyber business.
Yeah, look, there absolutely is. And it's no different to any other business in that regard. We still have to keep the lights on. We still have salaries to pay. We still have to make sure that our human resources are adequate and that our people are supported. Like every other business, we get into conversations that require legal engagement as well. And all of this just happens on a day-to-day basis. So it's no different from that regard to any other businesses, regardless of the size of the business or anything else. We all have the same functions, at an operational side.
Michaela, from a technical point of view and some of your background, obviously I'm going to assume there's not very many typical days, but what are some of the sorts of things that you would do in your career?
Well, I think part of the value or the opportunity that exists in working in cyberspace is you have access to computers and digital equipment, which means you can pretty much work from anywhere. And that's not always the case. Like sometimes I might be having a meeting in a government secure facility and talking to really important people who make big decisions about the future of Australia's national security, and that is fascinating. So that might be the way that we start or finish a particular day. But I might also take my laptop to a cafe and have lunch while I'm working, or I might be rocking up to work and seeing people that I like to see on a daily basis, grabbing a coffee, and I'll be, decked out in jeans and a polo t-shirt, and just doing what I enjoy on a daily basis. So really the day is varied, of course. There are days where there are dramas and problems that everyone needs to, drop all their tools and look to solving that problem on a given day. But generally, it's just about finding something that is a topic that is enjoyable and challenging and making that your everyday. And everyone has bad days and everyone has good days. If it's turning out to be a bad day, grab the laptop, go and sit in the sunshine and try and tackle the problem that way.
That's a great piece of advice. Matt, so obviously as CEO, there's a great deal of things on your plate, but do you still get your hands dirty on tools and try and get some things built?
The extent of the tools that I deal with are PowerPoint and Excel. So that's my world now. So I'd like to think that I could dust off, the cyber tools and have a crack, but the knowledge and skill deprecates, and you lose that muscle memory very, very quickly, which is why you need continuous training.
That's exactly right, and why you look at all the tools to make sure we've got this workforce underneath that can do all the things we need to. Now, Jen, you started the conversation around not having a typical day. What do your days look like?
Yeah, well, absolutely. There is no one day that's the same. But if I kind of step back a bit, there is a regular theme to them. So knowing really what's happening across the breadth of the business is really what's hot for me. And then stepping in to help on whatever is top of the priority list that day. So, and that's one of the beautiful things of the role that I get to do, is that I do get to work across the breadth of the team. So it could literally be anything from, there's an incident running, so how are we briefing the CEO and the head of our division, through to there's a media request coming through, how are we going to respond to that, through to staffing matters, how are we going to grow and hire in such a tight market, through to anything from my team launching the 2025 strategy. Do we approve of the absolute gorgeous graphics they have developed, as you can see here on my screen.
Who is that, by the way? Who's your little friend?
So this is our newly launched cyber dog, whose name is Patch. We did have a competition to name Patch, and there were some fantastic submissions: Bite, Chip, CVE, to 2021 dog, all sorts of brilliant submissions. But it is just another example of one of the things that I might touch on during the day. But for me, it's really about clearing the path for my team to go forth and do their amazing work. And there's a lot of PowerPoint and Excel, I won't lie, as well either. But and it's really about enabling our SMEs to go forth and make magic. Because they are absolutely the best at what they do. So how do I make their life a lot easier and allow them to crack on?
That's awesome. I love also listening to all of you, the passion that you all obviously have for cyber, even having come from different places and working for different companies. And it's one of the things that I love about working with the cybers here, especially here in Canberra, is as we talked about, all the things about doing good, which I love. So moving on from that, obviously what we're doing today is trying to help people that are interested in the cybersecurity industry either start their study journey, their employment journey, all those sorts of things. Now, wonderfully, all of you or representatives from your companies are going to be at a live lounge this afternoon. So from about 5:15, we're going to have somebody available from each of the companies here to talk to you about how you can get started, any burning questions you've got, all sorts of really interesting things. So it's going to be a wonderful session this afternoon. But just to finish off, what would each of you, what piece of advice or a tool or a resource or something to think about for somebody who wants to get started in their cyber journey, what piece of advice would you give them? I'm going to start with Matt.
Thanks, Brie. Just start, research, read, the information's there. You just, back in the day when I was studying, you just go to the library and pick up a book and start reading that. Just Google, search engine of your terms and just start and learn and talk to people. I mean, I did a master's degree in cybersecurity. Well, back then it was called information security. And that was great, but it wasn't until I got on the job where I really learned what this was about. And that's problem-based learning. So you really just start, look at puzzles, research, try things out, because there isn't like a corpus body of knowledge that you need for cybersecurity, which is great because it's, constantly expanding. Just explore and research, and you'll start to find your own interests and what you like and what you're good at, and just stick to that. You don't need to know everything because no one knows everything. And anyone who tells you that they know everything doesn't know how big the problem is.
That's a really great point. Michaela.
Well, I'm going to steal everyone else's comments in my summary. I think, like Matt said earlier, it's really about people. And if you're interested in the cybersecurity industry, or even just interested in people and how they communicate, I would say to anyone who's starting out to open your expectations and not limit your anticipation of what the cybersecurity industry involves by attributing it to something that's super, really hard, really technical. It's not about sitting in dark, dingy offices and hiding away from people, unless that's what you love. And if that's you, then great. But if you otherwise love people and love talking and love communicating, then there's opportunities too. A couple of years ago, I did some psychology subjects just to sort of broaden my own understanding about how people think and how human behaviour influences how we operate in cyberspace. And that is something that is completely atypical to networking and programming. So open your expectations, think about what you love to do, and go for it.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I love the idea of bringing in some of those soft skills and other sides of the world that people don't always assume is actually part of your cyber career as well. Damon, what about you?
Look, I'd probably echo the comments that have come before. It's number one, just start. Pick up a book, be interested, be engaged. Technical skills are probably the easiest element to pick up, insofar as on your learning journey. One of the things that's harder to pick up, and I think it's been touched on really, really well, is those soft skills, those people skills. Understanding how to interact with human beings in an environment like this, at times when there is often potential for high stress, is really, really vital. So your human skills are absolutely important. In our world, the ability to write is vital. We spend a lot of time producing documentation for customers, and that documentation is often directed towards a non-technical audience. So being able to take what are, oftentimes dense and detailed pieces of technical information and convert that information into something that is easily digestible by a business audience is absolutely vital. So don't overlook for 1 second the business skills and the writing skills that you might otherwise need to employ in your job.
Great, thank you. And we'll finish up with Jen.
The classic unmute. Look, there are probably three things that I'd recommend for people. Keep a really open mind is the first one. So I think that really touches on the points before me. There are so many different opportunities, and it might be that you need to start in something probably left of maybe where you want to go, and that's completely okay, because these niche skills within cyber all interlink, and there are brilliant ways to go across these different capabilities. So do just get in, and you can certainly move around once you're in the industry, and that is perfectly okay. In fact, it's incredibly valuable if you can show a breadth of capability in your learning that you can then bring to your next role. So that's probably one. Keep an open mind. Number two, I think, is what Damon touched on. The ability to communicate is incredibly important, and I'd add to that, have a service ethos. So quite often in large organizations like Telstra, we are servicing a customer, and it might not be the end customer that's buying a mobile phone, but it could be another part of the business that wants their product security assessed. So how do we make sure that we bring that service ethos to the way that we're working, communicate with them like a customer, and really take care of their needs, and help really shift their mindset on security, that we're not a blocker, or actually something that can really empower and enable them. And then the third one I'd say is get out there and get involved in the industry. We have a really rich ecosystem with some incredible industry bodies. Get out and get involved in them, because they are brilliant for networking. And I know we've got a bunch of introverts in our industry. Networking is the worst thing in the world, and I'm probably one of them too, but it's okay. And I think everyone's incredibly friendly when you do actually find the courage to have a chat. So reach out, and I think you can foster some incredible relationships, and that is certainly a brilliant way to get involved as well, particularly once you've had your entry role. So get involved in the industry. It is a really rich one with a beautiful community, and it very much nurtures our professionals.
That's absolutely true. Thank you for touching on that, Jen, because I found for myself, I'm newish, late to cyber industry in my career as well, and definitely being a part of that, and non-technical. Some of the networking events, some of the meetups, they're fantastic for really understanding and learning from people and creating that. And often people, as you said, we have often an introverted community. Words like networking can be a little confronting, but honestly, some of these great events that are out there are wonderful to go to and just meet people that have the same sorts of passions and interests and things to learn. And from that, you don't know quite where you'll end up. So I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. Well, that's us for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate you being here, spending some time with our attendees, and hopefully giving them some really great pieces of advice and a little bit of insight into what cyber industry looks like from the inside. So as I said, everybody, there will be somebody from each of these companies at the live lounge this afternoon to be able to talk to you, answer some more questions, and look at some different things that you could do within a cyber career. So thank you very much, Damon, Matt, Michaela, and Jen for being here today. And hopefully we'll see you at some wonderful networking thing soon.
Thanks, Brianna.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.